All right, it's just after 8 o'clock, so I'm going to call the meeting officially to order. And you'll all note that in the back we have this being videotaped by Cecilia Roars from Visible Touch Media, and this will be broadcast on Cablevision. The dates are, I will announce them later when I find what I did with them. They're on the website, and there's a handout also that has the dates on them. Okay, I'd like to thank the school district again for allowing us to use their facilities. And I'd also like to thank all of the attendees for coming out. And I see that we have the most of the village board here, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Pohar's up on the dais, Lori Sullivan, and I think I've spotted everyone that's here tonight.
Toby.
Okay. Oh, and Mr. Zegarelli is here as well. And here's Mayor Vesio. So we're just about complete. Mr. Murray isn't here tonight, and I would also like to thank Mr. Murray for his service, both on the village board and for his prior years of service on the planning board. He has decided not to stand for re-election this year, and we thank him for his dedicated service. We will now read a resolution by the secretary to cast one vote for the slate of executive committee members who have stood for re-election and were approved at the nominating meeting. So if you'll come up. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Toby. This is the resolution to cast ballot for uncontested nominees for Caucus Executive Committee. Resolved that the Secretary shall be directed to cast one vote for nominees: Aaron B. Stern, Chair; Hannah Berkowitz, Vice Chair; Louis Linder, Treasurer, in the back, and Toby Clarnett, Secretary, to serve as the caucus's executive committee for one-year terms commencing April 1st, 2014. Do I have a motion? Mr. Malik, or Mr. O'Leary? And a second?
Mr. Smalley.
Mr. Smalley. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As you can see, we have three candidates on the stage. They are vying for two open positions for village trustee, each for a 2-year term. So we will be holding a special voting meeting on January 22nd at the Youth Center behind the municipal building, and it will be from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. Voting will be by paper ballot and absentee ballots. Absentee ballots can be obtained from the website peoplescaucusbm.com or by contacting a member of the executive committee, and we will get them to you. We'd also like to have some volunteers to act as poll workers. We will need at least 6 poll workers for shifts of 2 hours. I said 6, I mean 9 for shifts of 2 hours each. You can't even do math anymore. And the poll workers will have a task of greeting people when they come in, getting them to sign in to check that they're eligible to vote. Books will be available to them, and the task is pretty simple, but there are instruction sheets at the back of the room. Anyone who would like to do it, please help yourself to one, and you can prepare for it. We also are asking for volunteers to circulate nominating petitions. Under the state law for village elections, independent nominating petitions must be filed with the village clerk within a certain number of days prior to the election. It's 35 days, so I think this year it's February 11th. We have to collect a minimum of 100 signatures. We always shoot for at least 150, and in recent years, we've been getting between 200 and 250 to assure that they withstand any challenges that might be filed. There are instructions and sample petitions at the back of the room, so if you'd like to look it over, we'd appreciate any assistance we can get. Tonight, we're going to move forward with a Meet the Candidates meeting in a debate format. The candidates will each be given 3 minutes to respond to questions that have been collected from members of the community, and then they will each have an additional 1.5 minutes to respond to the answers from other candidates. At the end of the question and answer period, they will be given an opportunity for a closing statement, and I left out that they'll be given an opportunity for a brief opening statement prior to the questions. So are the candidates ready? Yes, we are. Why don't we start, Mark, if you would make your opening statement? We'd appreciate it.
Sure. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the People's Caucus Executive Committee. As stated last week, my name is Mark Pohar, and I am honored to be before you tonight as nominee for trustee for the Village of Briarcliff Manor. I've been a resident here in Briarcliff for the past 18 years. My wife Carrie and I moved here to this village where family values and community values are of top importance. These values are evident and upheld by the residents and trustees of the village. We have raised 3 children in Briarcliff and incorporated the importance of family, friendship, and community, including understanding the importance of giving back through volunteering and maintaining family values, tradition, and a strong work ethic. Personally, I have volunteered in the community, including parish activities such as teaching religious education, membership on the parish council, and a Eucharistic minister. Additionally, I have sat on the Todd PTA as treasurer and on the Health and Safety Committee at Todd School. In addition to my village commitment, I am a member of the Untermeyer Performing Arts Council and a board member of the Schools of the Sacred Heart in Yonkers, New York, of which I hold a subcommittee position on the Marketing and Strategic Planning Committee. I have worked in healthcare for the past 33 years. I'm a registered nurse and have a master's in nursing administration from Pace University. I have a certificate in long-term care from New York Medical College in Valhalla, New York, and I hold a nursing home and administrator's license. In my professional career, I sit on numerous professional committees, and I'm a member of several professional organizations. For the past 2 years, I've had the honor and privilege to work with a seasoned group of individuals as trustee in the Village of Briarcliff Manor. Over the past 2 years, in addition to the normal and customary responsibilities of the board, including policy development and budget, I have worked with the board on plans for the redesign of the community center here in Briarcliff. We amended zoning for 445 North State Road. We worked with the DEC in creating additional practice fields for our children, and we're moving forward with the youth center. Working in healthcare, I've experienced the needs of residents and patients across the continuum, from the very young to the seniors. As many of you are aware, healthcare costs have skyrocketed. Reimbursement has spiraled downward with significant cuts across the board in all levels of payment. As an administrator, I'm faced with providing quality care for the residents and patients that we serve without compromising their services. This being done with narrow margins in reimbursement. If reelected, it will be my objective to continue to work to support the board and the residents of the village in improving services, reducing spending, and exploring opportunities to enhance the village and our community, while enjoying a quality lifestyle in the village, so rich in culture, dedication, and commitment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pohar. Mr. DeRose.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Stern. First, I would like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I know it's tough to get out during the week, in the middle of the week, in the evening. Thank you to the Executive Committee, to the Mayor, to the Village Manager, and again, to everyone who could come out this evening, especially my family. I've grown up here in Briarcliff. I went to high school here in Briarcliff. I met my wife, Carrie, here in Briarcliff, and I'm raising my daughter, Sabrina, here in Briarcliff. So I'm no stranger to how great a town this is, and having taken advantage of the wonderful sense of community that I feel in the village of Briarcliff, I thought it was time to give something back. I'm no stranger to community service. In fact, I was a Eagle Scout in Briarcliff Troop 18, associate member of the Briarcliff Ambulance Corps and Volunteer Fire Department in Ladder 40. And if you're wondering, as I've mentioned last week, if you're wondering where you recognize my face from, I manage the hardware store in Briarcliff. I've also started a business with my brother here in Briarcliff. So, as you could say, I'm deep-rooted. I believe that that mentality of small business management, as well as small business creative problem solving, is a perspective that I could bring to the caucus and to the community at large. I believe that the issues that we're facing can be solved with that mindset of small business management, thinking outside the box, finding creative solutions, finding creative areas for funding and the like. So that's why I seek your support in running for the village trustee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeRose. The third candidate is Larissa Wayne Palmeno. I didn't have room to get it all on your placard there, so it's Larissa Palmeno. I hope you don't mind that liberty.
Happens all the time.
Thank you.
Wayne Palmino. Good evening. My name is Larissa Wayne Palmino. And thank you to everyone who came tonight. Thank you to the mayor and the village board and the executive committee. I appreciate everyone taking the time to come. I moved to Briarcliff Manor from Manhattan in 1995 with my husband and 2 children. My kids enjoyed excellent schools in Briarcliff. My husband and I enjoyed the bucolic settings and proximity to the city. My husband, Bill, is a Marine veteran. I will make the same presentation because nothing much changed since a week ago. My husband, Bill, is a Marine veteran, and he is an adjutant to the Briarcliff Manor post of the American Legion. My son, Andrew, graduated from Annapolis United States Naval Academy. He graduated with honors, and he's serving as a second lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps at the moment. My daughter, Natalie, is a sophomore in University of Maryland, and the only thing that changed is she's back from Honduras, where she was building a school for children, second year in a row. I graduated from the Civil Engineering Institute in Moscow with a master's degree in Master of Science degree in Civil Engineering. I have 34 years experience in design and construction. I worked with Department of Environmental Protection for 5 years in design, and I spent close to 30 years in project management, construction project management for New York City Department of Parks and Recreation. As an associate project manager, my professional experience included planning and coordinating design and construction management for large capital projects. Design and construction of this project involved borough meetings, community board meetings, art commission review board, and inter-agency coordination. So I feel like I have 34 years of working with different municipalities, and I find it might be useful to work on board of trustees. I had to review contract documents for emission and conflicts, schedule various meetings with designers, contractors, subcontractors, consultants, resolve many unanticipated issues. Site visits was a big part of my job to monitor contract progress and make sure that there is compliance with work with contract documents. I had to consult with designers to facilitate revisions due to field conditions or design emissions, recommend solutions of highly complex nature, interact with community boards, maintain good public relations, prepare requests for additional funding, which might be I don't know if that's the case in the village. I don't think we have this liberty of being able to request for extra funding. I will find out if elected. I would stay with the job all the way to the completion, including progress, final guarantee inspection, and punch list completion. One of my last projects was reconstructing of the landfill area into greenways along the existing wetlands. The work included 5 miles of bikeways, fiberglass decking, and extensive native landscaping. As a matter of fact, I became a member of the Ad hoc Facilities Committee prior to the reconstruction of football fields, and I was happy to share my engineering experience with the community members involved. I'm also serving on the board of directors for the Briarcliff Manor and Scarborough Historical Society, and also on the CSI Caring Committee. CSI is the Congregation of Sons of Israel. I would be happy to participate in solving and making our village more, our beautiful village, I must add, more comfortable, functional, and hospitable to all our residents. I just find that my work for so many years in municipality will be very helpful to our village. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Palmino. Before we start with the questions, I will fill in on those times and broadcast schedule from Cablevision that I missed earlier. The first rebroadcast will be Saturday, January 18 at 3:30 p.m., Sunday, January 19 at 1 p.m., Monday, January 20 at 5:30, and Tuesday, January 21 at 11 p.m. As part of this being a debate, we're going to keep time. We'll be a little informal with it, since that's been agreed to by the candidates. Our secretary will hold up a little placard to let you know when you have a minute to go, and again when you have 30 seconds to go, but if you run over a little bit, we won't penalize you. So we'll get started now, and we'll go first in order of left to right, and then reverse it and right to left. Each of you should answer the same question, and here we go. The first question was submitted by Dr. Alan Miller of 33 Creighton Lane. And Mark, if you will start, in your opinion, what are the most significant issues facing Briarcliff Manor, and what are the possible solutions?
Thank you, Aaron. As I see it, I'm looking at 3 significant issues facing Briarcliff Manor at this time. The first one are the taxes. We want to make sure we stay within our tax cap or the tax restrictions without compromising services. I believe that working, conscientiously as a board, hearing the residents, working with all the disciplines involved, the board has done well keeping the taxes below the other communities in Westchester County. We haven't raised our taxes, and I would like to see it continue that way. The other thing is working within the budget without compromising services, keeping a zero-sum gain on our budget. Dealing with numbers and budgets, it's always difficult to make sure that you have quality services and work within the constraints of your monies. So we do develop the budget every year, and working with the village manager and the board, we do keep tight constraints on the budget. So that's another one. And the third one is I see as our steep slopes in our wetlands. Some of our policies and the laws are a little outdated. They haven't been updated since for many years to regulations, and we need to bring the current standards up to current day and time, so the residents in this community can enjoy their land, their property.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Cesar, the same question for you. I'll repeat it for simplicity.
No need.
Then proceed.
Thank you for that question, Dr. Miller. Excuse me. While I don't have the benefit of having had the experience that my colleague Mark has had, what I would like to say is that two points. My approach when I heard this question was I guess my approach in general to elected officials or elected government is that I know the reasoning for the question was, what are the current issues that you're facing on the board, and what are the trustees doing as we speak now? I, again, as I said, don't have that intimate knowledge, but I can say, number one, I don't think it's my job to say the issues that I think. I think it's my job to listen to the issues that the people think, and then to take each of those issues and break them down in a 4-step process. That would be my approach to any problem that was brought to my attention. Number one, find out what the problem is, who it's affecting, whether that be residents, a business, what have you. Number two, solution ideas, whether the public has ideas. Bring my expertise and my opinions into it. Confer with my colleagues as well as the mayor and the village board and the village manager. Thirdly, look at the cost of the solutions and our options. And then lastly, looking at options to find where that funding is going to come from. Is that going to come from fundraising? Is it going to come from state funding? Is it going to come from county funding? Is it going to come from our own funding? And then if all those things make sense, look at what the solutions are, the cost of the solutions, and see how that plays into our budget at the time, and the way that our what we can afford to do at that time.
Thank you, Mr. DeRose. Mrs. Palmeno, would you take the same question? If you'd
Yes.
like, I'll be happy to read it.
That's fine. You don't
Okay,
have to.
go ahead.
Well, I agree that Briarcliff Manor bears an enormous tax burden. We're paying disproportionately high taxes with small percentage of population and very high percentage rate. The village did an exemplary job at keeping our taxes under control for the last, I think, 4 or 5 years. And the Board of Trustees has to continue this trend. That's my goal if I were to join the Board of Trustees. One of the issues that's very important to us at the moment that I heard of is the annexation of the town of Ossining District 17 and 20. And I consider this a very important issue for Briarcliff. There are some pros and cons. The benefits of this proposal is that the Briarcliff Manor already provides services to these districts. So there will be not additional, but no significant additional cost to Briarcliff if these districts were to join us. I know this goes into the next question, so I will not elaborate on that anymore. But I just want to add that having worked on the many projects, I'm used to evaluating and figuring out the best way to address the needs and the budgeting within restricted, limited funds. So I will do my best to follow that suit.
Thank you, Mrs. Palmeno. Mark, do you have anything that you would like to add or differ with the other candidates' responses on? No. How about you, Cesar?
No, thank you.
Larissa?
No.
Okay. We'll move on to the second question then. And this question was submitted by Kristen Linder, 21 Pine Road. If the annexation of Districts 17 and 20 of the unincorporated portions of the town of Ossining actually takes place, what will the benefit be to the village of Briarcliff? Larissa?
The annexation of 1,100 Ossining residents of Districts 17 and 20, which includes the businesses, business district and residential homes on and off the North State Road, was requested. This annexation was requested by the residents. This didn't come from Briarcliff Manor. This was requested by those residents. It is my understanding that they don't have a town representative in Ossining, and that seemed to be a major concern, but neither does the Briarcliff Manor. We provide fire, ambulance, and recycling services to these districts. Sanitation will change to the village of Briarcliff Manor at no additional cost, I was told. So adding 1,100 residents without significant additional services, because we already provide them, will result in tax relief through efficiencies without significant additional cost to the village. Ryder Park stays within the town of Ossining, but the village of Briarcliff Manor will seek to take over the management. It is my understanding that the village board has to reach a final decision in about 60 days on this issue. And if town of Ossining and Briarcliff Manor cannot come to an agreement, the issue will be brought before the appellate court, and if approved, there will be referendum in District 17 and 20. Please know that if, this will go into the next question. I will not address it at this point.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Palmino. Cesar?
I'd like to start off by, again, saying that I don't have all the intimate details, so I think it would be improper for me to speak, without having all the information. However, the little bit of information that I do have, I see the benefit being mainly, aside from having 1,100 or so. I'm using your numbers. I don't know. I had percentages. I think it was about 6.5% increase in population in the village, and those are all going to be people that are potentially volunteering, potentially playing, using recreational sports and things of that nature, joining the community. I have absolutely no problem with that. I think that only brings benefit to the community. But from a fiscal standpoint, seeing an increase in the population while not having, as you said, not having to severely increase services. We already provide fire service, police service, if I'm not mistaken, is contracted out to the county, and really the businesses and the residential homes you'd see. Again, I don't have the proper numbers, but I had heard a number of in the high 20s of a percentage of a tax benefit. So, in my mind, again, without knowing all the information, I would just keep an open mind in saying that to add residents while not straining our resources and adding tax benefit, I can only see being a reward for the community.
Thank you, Mr. DeRose. And Mark?
Okay, thank you. As my colleagues had stated, we were solicited by the resident of District 17 and 20, and as a board, we have an obligation to review and recommend to the board what is sound and for the betterment of the residents and the community as a whole. We have to look at three specific things. What is the betterment or the benefit or detriment, which is customarily defined in terms of services such as the police, the fire, the water, sewer. Whether the annexing municipality and territory proposed to be annexed has a unity of purpose and a sense of community. And what is the tax revenue impact or the loss or the gain of revenue by the involved municipalities? And right now, as we're doing our due diligence for the residents of the District 17 and 20, we have to kind of review, is it sound, is it good? And we are right now in the process of fact-finding and getting that information. But preliminarily, with this annexation, we would hopefully see a decrease in taxes, economies of scale, and reduction of redundant services.
Thank you, Mr. Pohar. I'm going to deviate from the question and response piece for a second, just to add something. I did attend the joint board meetings between the town of Ossining and the village board of Briarcliff. And one thing was evident at those board meetings, that there were significant differences between the town of Ossining and the village on the beneficial or detrimental aspects, if any, of the proposals. And many of the speakers at that session asked the parties to come together and try to develop some kind of presentation that says, here are the things we agree on, and here are the things we disagree on, and here's each party's positions. I'm hoping that that is moving forward, and look forward to seeing that. And we as the People's Caucus would like to help in getting that message out to the communities through use of our website or otherwise. So, Phil, if anything else gets put out on that, please let me know, and we'll try to do our best to help disseminate it. Getting back to the question, Anybody want to take a response to the other candidates' statements? Larissa?
No.
Cesar?
No, sir.
Mark?
No, sir.
Okay. Third question we have was submitted by Paul Wasserman of 4 Elizabeth Court. The mayor and the current Board of Trustees have indicated that they continue to work towards becoming a coterminous town village. What impact can residents anticipate down the road from this governmental change? And we start this time again with Mark.
Okay, thank you. As a coterminus, we've been discussing this for a while. The village of Briarcliff sits on 2 towns, and neither town provides services that equate to really the taxes that are paid by the community. Given the services provided by the town, we are in a double taxation field without really benefits. And becoming coterminous would negate the tax inequities that all the residents here at Briarcliff Manor are exposed to. For instance, the town of Ossining provides a tax assessor and a receiver of taxes for a school tax collection. We are 40% of our tax with only 22% of the population. So I think by working towards this coterminus, it would have a great impact and a benefit for the residents and their tax levels.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pohar. And Cesar, your turn.
To be completely honest, I don't have the information to speak intelligently on this issue. The one thing that I'm not 100% sure about this statement, but I think that something, if I'm correct, it's something that needs to be looked at very carefully, is that if we were to become a coterminous town and village, the annexation would be off the table. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
My understanding is annexation would have to precede becoming a coterminous town
Right.
village.
So, given, again, like I said, the situation, we have 2 relatively conflicting issues here, and without having the intimate knowledge and really seeing what would be more beneficial to the residents of Briarcliff, and from a tax benefit standpoint, I really don't have an opinion either way.
Thank you, Mr. DeRose. And Larissa?
As mentioned before and agreed by all, Briarcliff Manor pays disproportionate taxes. I'll back it up with some numbers. According to 2010 census, with approximately 19% of population, we pay around 38% of village taxes, according to 2013 census. Town of Ossining, with 67% population, pays only 43% in taxes. Becoming a terminus town village will result in a more equitable tax situation and help to prevent tax burden increase to the residents of Briarcliff Manor in the future. Getting our own assessor and receivers will provide the village with more accurate and fair property assessments. Become Town Village will not change school district lines. Ryder Park will stay within the town of Ossining, but we will take over the management in the future. So I see it as a very positive change for the village. I agree with what Chase said. We have to be careful with annexation process, and it would have to precede the village becoming coterminous village, because then we will not be able to have the annexation completed.
Larissa, thank you very much. Mark, would you like to add to or respond to anything that's been said?
No, I'm good, thank you.
And Cesar?
Fine, thank you.
And Larissa?
Good.
I'm going to take a moment to deviate here again and ask if there are any other questions that the audience would like to submit, because since we've been not having much response and reply, we will probably have some time to add additional questions. So if anybody has any, please fill out a card and give them to one of the, they're in the back. Thank you. Okay, moving on while that's occurring. This question comes from Stuart Halper of 105 Whitson Road. Several years ago, the village formed a committee to come up with a plan for the improvement of Scarborough Park. For the last few years, a question has come up at the candidates' question and answer sessions regarding the park, but nothing appears to have been done, and erosion has infringed on this valuable asset. How do you feel about saving this waterfront property? At a minimum, would you be in favor of taking some action to stabilize the north and west sides to minimize further erosion, even if funding is not now available for overall park improvements that have been contemplated? And Larissa, would you start that, please?
Yes, thank you. Scarborough Park is a lovely spot behind the Scarborough Station with spectacular Hudson River views. This is the only waterfront access to the river, actually. Scarborough Committee was established somewhere around 2008, I believe, and they produced a plan to improve the park so as to provide better usable options for the residents. This included concrete bulkhead with fill delivered to restore some of the park grounds, docks for the canoes, areas and benches for the fishermen, walkways for public. There was no cooking facilities in the plans. I actually was able to get a hold of these plans, if anyone wants to look at it after the meeting. The plans were submitted and approved by the village board, but there were no funds available to do the work. To my knowledge, to this date, there were no funds raised for this project. I know that the village set aside around $400,000 to do the work. These funds had to be matched by the county, but this never materialized. As a civil engineer, I know that there are very inexpensive ways of dealing with erosion, which is a big part of this park problem. I will be happy to participate in revising the submitted plans to make it more affordable and bring the reconstruction of the lovely park to life. I understand that this is not a high priority during these difficult financial times, but if we can find an economical way to stabilize the area, I think it should be done. I know that the village proceeded with filing for the environmental grants, but that never came through either. The estimate for the RIPROC, which is another way of supporting the area versus bulkhead, was around $600,000, and the total project price was around $1 million, a little bit under, like $965, I believe, something like that. I was looking at the plans, and I can see that some things can be omitted. Some things we can leave without. They had a dock for canoes. There was an area, access area for the residents to go down to the water. There were many things that can be looked at. There are some very easy ways to control the erosion. Sometimes it's just invasive planting materials. There are ways to deal with it. I think this should be done. I think we should really look into it.
Thank you, Mrs. Palmeno. Any replies or responses or additions? Mark?
Well, the conservation of the parks and waterfront property is always a priority. I mean, we're fortunate in this area to live in such an area that we afford the Hudson River and the Palisades. It's beautiful landscape, relaxing, tranquil, I believe, for all the residents. As Larissa stated, the village did apply for a grant excuse me, for $400,000, but unfortunately New York State didn't have the money to match for the grant, for the $400,000. The village has engaged from residents in a concept design to redesign the Scarborough Park. And the design is in Village Hall if anybody wants to look at it. The design included a fishing pier, a perimeter walk, a gazebo, picnic area, and a canoe and kayak area. Moving forward, I think we have a commitment in the village and the board to, even if there is, we don't have the funding, to take it in steps and perhaps start small and start working and doing something to preserve that the park, and start at the the shore and the soil to prevent that from further eroding. And if we could move forward from there, it would fortunately benefit all the residents.
Cesar, didn't mean to skip over you.
Mark had mentioned some of the things that again, the little bit that I know about it. I know that there are plans on the books. I know that an application, I think, has been made for a grant, and for whatever reason, I can't speak to that. Why the funding hasn't come to fruition. I mean, I will say this: in my experience in construction and building and things of that nature, these things do take quite a bit of time for applying for permits and plans and things like that. I mean, as they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. But, from a perspective of trying to look at a creative or an economical way of, putting, so to speak, a finger in the dam on the erosion issue, I would be open-minded to that. I'd be open-minded to any creative solution. But without knowing the full extent of the cost and the other burdens that we have on the budget, I couldn't speak to whether that would be something that I would want to, pursue at this point.
Thank you very much. An audience member has submitted another question, and I guess this is for me to answer. Were all three candidates provided with the questions prior to this debate? And the answer to that is yes. They were provided to the candidates. One of the candidates currently sits on the board. 2 others are new. We thought it would be fair for all of them to know at least some of the questions that were going to be submitted. Moving on to the next questions. Another audience question. Stephen Smalley, 111 Orchard Road. The village has made several infrastructure improvements. What do you see as necessary improvements we need to make? And I think it's your turn to start this, Mark.
What infrastructure improvements? Yes, sir. One of the infrastructure we've been looking at is the 9A and North State Road traffic and the turning, specifically in the morning. There's a big backup of traffic as they're going west on 9A toward into the village. I believe that we have worked with the New York State Department of Transportation, and they're responsible for the improvement of that road. Several people have brought to the attention of the board that concern. I believe that there's some work to be done, that if we could work with the New York State Department of Transportation and the Board of Legislators to see what we could do as far as widening that passage there. And we will definitely keep this in our discussions at the board level.
Cesar?
To the best of my knowledge, actually, the piece of property on the right-hand side, if you're coming from North State Road into the village, I believe that's a piece of county property, or is it state property? County property. I think it's county parkland. So I know that there was some talk of perhaps taking a piece of that land and swapping it out for another piece of parkland somewhere else in the village, and then widening that area and making perhaps a right turn only lane. I have a personal issue with this issue because I live on North State Road, and I travel daily back and forth across 9A, and I'm sure many of you know that it could take 3 or 4 lights during rush hour to get through there. However, I think that there's a lot of moving parts in this. It's not simply a matter of making the right-hand turn, in my opinion. You have a couple things working against you. Number one, the timidness of drivers, because if you're coming through the village and you're going to make the right out of the village off of Pleasantville Road and make a right to go southbound on 9A, many of the people don't put their blinkers on. So the people that are coming straight across the intersection are afraid of making that left turn because they don't know if the person's going to make the right or come straight across. Secondly, I think that another issue that you have is people coming out of the busy shopping center of Squires and Dunkin' Donuts, especially in the morning, they try and jump the light and come right out of that exit ramp. So I would be open to, one of several different options. A, having a left turn signal on a light. Again, I'm not familiar enough with the traffic patterns and the way that those things work, but that would be one idea for me. The thing that's on the books, from what I understand, is the right widening and taking a piece of land there. If that were to go through, make a right turn only lane, and then as well, I know it's private property, but so in some way managing the traffic coming in and out of the Squires / Dunkin' Donuts property there. I think that those all create a perfect storm, so to speak, of a holdup, a bottleneck there. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. DeRose. And Larissa, do you have any comments on that?
Yes, I do. Not on Chaser, on the question.
On the question.
I studied the presentation made by the village manager to the Chamber of Commerce in the fall on this issue. It offers a solution in order to widen the road and redesign the traffic to install a right and left storage turn lane. That's what they called. And this will require Village of Berkeley to obtain a small parcel jointly owned by DOT and county, as you said correctly. It makes perfect sense for Berkeley Manor to swap these properties with DOT to resolve traffic backup at the corner of North State Road on Route 9A. We all know how difficult the turn is, and I'm sure that the issues that you addressed will be resolved by installation of the proper lights, which usually is part of the design for such intersections. So I fully support that project, and that should be done.
Thank you, Mrs. Palmano. Cecilia, how much time do we have on the tape? Thank you. Mr. O'Leary, the first part of your question was completely subsumed by their answers, so I'm just going to ask the last part of it. What is the status of this project, if you know? And Mark, can you start with that?
Yes. As far as working on this project, to date, the Board of Legislators has been unwilling to move forward on this project. Like we said before, the New York State Department of Transportation is responsible for the improvement of the road. And then the property along 9A is Westchester County-owned parkland, and a portion of that is needed for the improvements that we had spoken about widening and the turn lanes. And the Board of Legislators has been unwilling to move forward, despite the village, which has offered to give the county land the village owns that's adjacent to the Pocantico Park there, that park there on the corner of 9A and North State Road. So we have to work, like I said, with the Board of Legislators to push this, give it full core press to hopefully get some resolution there.
Cesar and Larissa, do either of you have anything to add to that?
I do not.
I'm not familiar with the status of this.
Okay. Another question from Mr. Smalley. Traffic is increasing. How should we improve it, I guess, other than the North State intersection? And how should we get the state to help us? If you could start with that, Mark.
Well, traffic is increasing because I guess more people are driving. I don't know how much control we have over drivers. We have where we see is we have reviewed traffic patterns within the village. We have years ago put a traffic light at the corner of Pleasantville Road and South State Road there to control the traffic concerns. We do have in Briarcliff, our police do police the area to make sure that people are abiding by the speed limits. We have to just be cognizant, and as a community, as residents, if we see people driving quickly, we have to alert the proper authorities. we don't want people to shy away from our community and move out of the community. So I don't know as far as traffic goes if we would ever have a total control over it, but we could, keep monitoring on it.
Thank you, Mr. Pohar. Mr. DeRose, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, I just wanted to ask Mr. Smalley if he had a specific area that he's seeing traffic increase or in general throughout the village.
Several neighborhoods have increased. You've got Chilmark as a shortcut for everybody. You've more traffic going down South State Road, more traffic going up and down Elm Road. So, and of course you've got the speedway that calls Sleepy Hollow Road. So there's numerous places in the village where traffic is increasing. And I was asking for your input. When I asked the infrastructure question, it had to do with things other than that 9A intersection. It had to do with water mains, which have been improved, pumping stations, which have been improved. This was a traffic question.
Sorry, I didn't ask it the right way, I guess. Larissa, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, the simple solution would be putting more speed bumps. It slows them down. Well, what we would normally do in our department, we would hire a consultant to do a traffic study, make a presentation with a solution, because I'm not familiar with the areas in detail, and I couldn't give you an answer. So you get the professionals to study and tell you what to do. That would be my solution to the problem.
Okay, the time is very short now, so we've come to the point where we're going to ask the candidates to provide a closing statement, and then we'll ask if there's any other business to take up. So, Mrs. Palmeno, would you make your closing statement, please?
I didn't prepare a closing statement. All I have to say that I deeply care for Briarcliff Manor. I love my village. It's a beautiful spot, and I would like it to remain small village. I don't think becoming town village will change that, so we shouldn't shy away from that idea. I would love to be able, I have some time on my hands now, I've been retired for 3 years. I will be happy to give my time to the village, to give back to the community, and help in any way I can to make it more beautiful, more lovely, and comfortable for all.
Thank you. Mr. DeRose?
As I stated earlier in my opening statement in my introduction, I grew up in this town. My wife is from this town. My in-laws live in this town. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law live in this town. My parents live in this town. I am intimately involved with 2 businesses in this town. I love this town. I want a chance, an opportunity to, be a sounding board for the people, help in any way that I can, bring my experience in sales and small business and management, construction, hardware, building materials in any way. If I could bring that knowledge, and expertise, I'd be happy to share it with the village and my community. I'm looking for a way to give back to a village that's given me so much over the years and my family. Lastly, I'm looking forward to learning a lot. I love to learn. I want to, get involved as much as I can and, keep an open mind and find creative solutions to the problems that we face. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeRose and Mr. Pohar.
In closing, I'd like to thank the Executive Committee of the People's Caucus, the board, my family, and the residents of Briarcliff Manor. Certainly, if reelected, I would like to continue to work on some of the projects that we have in place right now. I'd like to help with the concerns that were brought forth and the questions that were brought forth by the community and by the audience tonight about the annexation, about the infrastructure, about Scarborough Park. As echoed by my colleagues, Briarcliff is a beautiful community. The residents and in the village, I think, work in harmony for the betterment. It's a safe community. We want to keep it safe. We want to flourish it, keep the residents not moving out, from coming here to Briarcliff. And I would like to continue with some of the projects, like I said, that we are currently working in. Thank you all. Good night and have a safe journey home.
We need a few moments before we say goodnight. Sure.
I just wanted to say, I drive around the village and I see so many things, and I see them as a professional, and I think, oh, this needs to be done. And I just would like to have a voice to be able to put my professional knowledge to the use and be able to correct those things that need attention.
Cesar, do you have anything else you'd like to add? Mark, we're good?
No, thank you.
I want to thank the candidates. I know it takes a lot of work to prepare for these discussions, and I'm very thankful that you all did so. At this stage, I'd like to ask members of the audience if there is any other business they would like to bring before the caucus. And if so, raise your hand and I'll recognize you. Seeing no other business, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting. Mr. O'Leary, thank you. Is there a second? Mr. DeRose, thank you. I now declare the meeting closed. And again, you can watch it on Cablevision. Thank you very much, everybody.